Hello, Jody. Hello, Daryl Weaver. Thank you for joining in, Stephanie and Edmund. If you guys could please tag and share. It's really important that the community learns about history in the streets. I'm excited about this new episode on Yates TV. Please tag and share. Please tag and share. For those of you that have children at home, this is a good time to grab them and have them be a part of the conversation, because we are going to talk about local and community history. We're going to talk about some amazing people that helped build the city of Columbus. And you don't want your children to miss out on this wonderful local history. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes. I see a few of you guys have joined me. I need a few more. I hope that's Carletta on my phone, on our live feed. Is that Miss Carletta? Can you say hi? Miss Carletta, God bless you, baby. I am praying for you and your family and the protection and the safety of your family. Please tag and share. We're talking about history. I need everyone involved in the conversation. Okay, we're about to get started. I told you, I'm trying to be prompt on 1 o'clock. Every Friday, you're going to get some history lessons from your homegirl, your lifestyle expert, and now local historian Rita Fuller-Yates. I am not doing this so that you guys not only know the knowledge of history, but I'm doing this at a time when your children is at home, and you can bring them along the journey so that they can learn their local history. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and I didn't know much about where I lived or why or who it was that lived around me. But before I get started and before we start the conversation, I need for you guys to watch a 1 minute and 30-second clip. Did you hear me? 1 minute and 30-second clip. Please don't go. I've noticed in my research that some of you guys leave me during the time that we're talking or telling a story. In order for you to understand the true story so you can tell your children, you do need to watch the information. So please don't leave me. It's only 1 minute and 30 seconds. You'll join me after the clip and we'll talk about it. While growing up in Columbus, Ohio in the 1980s on what we now call the Near East Side, much of what I learned about my community was taught by naysayers, street hustlers, and community gossipers. We didn't know who we were, nor the rich history we were rooted from. What I later discovered was the east side of Columbus was one of the major community hubs in the Midwest for Black professionals. Leaders such as Albert Jackson, Nimrod Allen, Carl Brown Sr., just to name a few. Them and other significant Black people led the Black community to better understand the value of religion, politics, education, equality, and more importantly, how to maintain Black businesses. History in the Streets will not only highlight these individuals who helped shape the Black community, but we will explain the treasures of our past history, embracing the homes we lived in, the communities we built, the businesses we grew, and the legacies we created. It's my belief that knowing our history is owning our history. When we own our history, we can tell our history so we can preserve our history. Welcome to History in the Streets. Okay, so now you guys now understand why it is that we're doing this show. It's not only about learning Black history and local Black history, but it's understanding how to preserve Black history while understanding the value of legacy. And we're going to talk about all of those three components today. But first, in order for us to understand a little bit of Black history, we do have to tell a little bit of American history. And I'll start out with an American story that we're pretty accustomed to. The story of the Kelton family. We're outdoors, so please excuse us. The story of the Kelton family. For those of you that may know or may not know the story, the Kelton family started with Fernando Kelton, who came to Columbus from Vermont in 1830. He married Sophia Kelton, who was actually a part of the Stone family, a prominent entrepreneur family. The Fernando, when they married, they built a home in 1853 at 586 East Town Street. Now keep in mind, we know East Town Street as it sits today, but let me explain a little bit about how East Town Street was in the 1850s. East Town Street was somewhat of a suburb of Columbus. It was a mile away from High Street, but as you know, we were on carriage and buggies, and it was made up of a farmland. So it was a lot of trees and farms and pastures. So what it looks like today, it didn't look like that in the 1850s, which makes sense to tell more about our story. So the Fernando, as we had said earlier, was an abolitionist in the story. He's an abolitionist as well as a conductor for the Underground Railroad. After they built their home in 1853, 10 years later or so, they found a young Black girl on the land, pretty sick. That little Black girl's name is Martha. Martha Hartway, actually. That is the story we're going to talk about today. Now, I have to give you a little background history about Martha. Not only was she found by the Kelton, Sophia Kelton, which is the wife of Fernando, she was raised by the Kelton's family. And I think that's unique because a white family took in a free Black girl, raised her as their own, and they, of course, began a legacy together. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before I talk any more about Martha, I want to make sure that we get the details correct and you understand all of her beginnings. And I have a 1 minute and 30-second clip that's going to give you a better understanding of who Martha is so that you can understand why she's so important to preserve, okay? So I'll see you back here in 1 minute and 30 seconds. Please don't leave me. This is the best part of the story.
Martha Hartway was born near Richmond, Virginia in 1854. She fled the South as a daughter of a slave. Her half-brother, the plantation slave owner, gave her and her siblings freedom. As a young girl, she traveled and landed her journey on the land in Columbus, Ohio, of Sophia Kelton. Sophia discovered Martha was very ill. Considering the strict fine for hiding a slave, Sophia decided to move Martha in and raise her as her own, and as a playmate to her own children. Fernando Kelton, who was Sophia's husband, was a strong abolitionist and worked for the anti-slavery movement. The family home would later become a stop on the Underground Railroad, where slaves would find safe spaces as they journeyed to Canada. At the young age of 16, Martha married a free Black carpenter whose name was Thomas Lawrence. They both resided at 69 17th Street in 1900. Martha and Thomas had 2 children, one of them who became a doctor and was named after their childhood friend, Arthur Kelton.
So now you see why it is we have to talk about Martha Hartway. You understand the connection with the Kelton family, and you understand that they began a legacy together that carries on to this very day. And we'll talk about that a little more as well. Now keep in mind, the Kelton House became an underground railroad stop for many slaves as well as free slaves. The free slaves became workers of the estate. And keep in mind that Martha became a domesticated worker as well as a person that was raised with her children. So all of these intertwine, and I have to be honest about the story, because many times when we're telling history, we tell either the white side of the story, which explains a lot of the Kelton family, and honestly, they introduced me to Martha, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, or we tell the black side of the story, which sometimes goes to the far extreme and doesn't explain the beginning of things. I just want to create honest stories. So the Kelton family was a white family that happened to be an abolitionist and a conductor for the Underground Railroad. So we have to be honest that every white person wasn't against or for slavery. So that's one of the honest conversations that I personally have. And then secondly, we have to be very clear that an African American at this time, to receive the education and the tutorial from a white family at that time, built legacy for their family today. And we'll talk a lot about that. Okay? So now you understand how the Kelton family began. You understand the relationship that started and how Martha started the relationship with the Kelton family. But now I want to talk a little bit about preserving history. I have been an advocate now for about a year studying our local history. As the clip said in the beginning, I was born and raised here in Columbus and had no idea that I lived around such amazing leaders, innovators, people who was really making a difference at a unique time in Columbus. But I was always told, and I just have to be honest, that I lived in the hood, in the ghetto, and no one around me lived in excellence. That bothered me all of my life. So now that I'm privileged to learning differently, and I now understand that everything I learned was not true, I am taking passion in learning the information so that I can share it with you guys. Now, the only challenge with that is I can't have eyes everywhere, which means I need your help. And that's really one of the reasons why we're doing the show. We're sharing the information for your knowledge, but we're also needing your help to help preserve the information, okay? So, one of the houses that I'm standing in front of, and I'm excited about this, I get so elated about this type of stuff, is we're actually on the street. The address is 69 North 17th Street, which is in between Broad and Long on the east side of Columbus. And what's significant about this building is this actually is where the home was of Martha and Thomas Lawrence. What? In 1900. I'm gonna let you guys look at that. Are y'all excited like I am? This home was owned, did you hear me? Owned by a free man, which was named Thomas Lawrence, who married Martha Lawrence, who at the time or prior was Martha Hartway, and this was where their home was. Now, after some research and studying the foundation of the home, our hopes is that this was the actual home that they lived in. But after some extensive studying of the foundation of the house, it is understood that it's been redefined now as an apartment, but it's also been redefined from its original foundation. But because we are savvy and we love to teach and make sure that you guys know where you come from, my husband made this wonderful image of what the house could have looked like in 1900. And you're looking at that right now. This information is not just for you.
This information is so that you can preserve the history and understand what sits around you. So if you happen to have a friend that lives on 17th Avenue, please share this video with them, because they may not know the history that sits around them. Now, you may want to ask me, Rita, why is that important that we know that? That's pretty cool. Well, the reason why we have to know that is because this information is going to teach us what to preserve. If we don't know the knowledge of our history, most of the time they come in and destroy it. And we have to stand for it. So it's my job to research the information and share it with you guys. But it's your job to share it with the people who live on these streets, and possibly that could be you. And when you see someone with a notepad standing in front of the yard with their pen, you know something's about to go down. I'm gonna need you guys to get more involved. Contact me, contact the activists who you know who want to preserve our history. Because what's happening in Columbus is we are a growing city, and as the city grows, they're looking for communities and areas that they can basically use what I call takeover. The takeover spirit does happen in our community primarily because we don't know our history. We don't know what's valuable about that house, so they come in and destroy it. But you are going to know differently moving forward, because it's my commission. I'm commissioning myself to share this information with you guys, okay? But I can't do it alone. So please share and tag anyone that you know loves history, if you love to preserve history, or if you even love legacy, if you're a part of legacy in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, so that we are making sure that you understand what to preserve, we're going to talk about a couple of other homes that I think is valuable in the story. Not only did they live here at 69 North 17th Street, the Kelton family also lived on the south side, which I don't have the address for them, but we're going to talk about legacy in a minute and how I know this information. But another valuable house is located at 70 South Monroe Avenue, and he's going to put an image up there of it. And that actually is the home of Edwin and Anna Kelton. They built the home in the early or late 1800s, and it was assumed that Sophia, who was responsible for us knowing all of this wonderful history, who is the granddaughter of the Keltons, was born in that home. So, drawing conclusions, I only assume that our dear Martha was also a domestic worker, as well as more or less her aunt. And it's my assumption that they did a lot of activities in that home because it was a bigger home, as well as that home was probably also a part of the Underground Railroad, because they were the in-laws, or I should say the son-in-law and the daughter of Fernando. So you know how family is. We all mix and mingle and do a lot of the same things. So we want to preserve that history at 70 South Monroe Avenue. And then last but not least, we have 233 Monroe Avenue. We have an image there. This is actually the home of Arthur Kelton Lawrence. Doctor, did you hear me? Dr. Arthur Kelton Lawrence is the son of Martha and Thomas, who became a black doctor. So that's why the legacy of things is so cool. Martha obtained an opportunity in the mid-1800s, unlike any black person amongst probably all of her friends. She married a free man. They had land and owned homes at an early time in America when black people didn't. But they also built legacy because they had this wonderful son by the name of Arthur Kelton Lawrence, who was named after Arthur Kelton, who was the son of Fernando and Sophia. You see all these connections? So all black people and all white people didn't dislike each other. And I love these stories because I'm married to a white man.
And he is one of the most kindest, most helpful white men I've ever met when it pertains to helping the Black community. So I look for stories to say, hey, if there was one of him now, there had to have always been one of him. Everyone wasn't a racist, okay? So my phone is ringing, of course, during the middle of a live feed. Always, always, always. So do we understand now our history of Miss Hartway? We understand what we have to preserve. But before we go, I want to talk about legacy, okay? I think it's so important to talk about legacy because it's really the beginning of something, but it has to continue. It's a mindset. The reason why legacy is important in this story is because my friend, and we have a couple of pictures of her family, my friend Rosanna Bivens, who I happen, excuse me, to have gone to high school with, is the great-great-granddaughter of Martha Hartway. What? What? I mean, if I didn't start talking about these stories on Facebook, there's no way I would have ever known that a friend that I grew up with all of her intelligence, the personalities in the family are amazing, and it makes so much sense that they come and they are rooted from such beautiful legacy. I got to hear her mother, who is the great-granddaughter of Martha, who happens to know a lot of stories about Martha because her grandmother's name is Martha. Her mother's name, excuse me, name is Martha. So all of these names and the legacy of our names and who we are and where we come from is rooted in something. And I first want to say thank you to the Hartaways, the Lawrences, the I think, oh, I forgot the other one, she told me the family, I'm sorry, the Penn family, the Estes family, and now the Bivens family. They created legacy. And that's really what history is all about. When it pertains to Black history, it normally starts with somebody telling somebody else. And it's so important that we take note of not only history, but we take note of the addresses of our history, because that is really what we can touch, and that's the truth. And then we also recognize our legacy, because as one person tells the story, the next person tells the story, and guess what the story gets to do? It continues to live, okay? So all that we're trying to do is to be a resource for you so that you can constantly grow in who you are and knowing who you are so that you can have confidence in who you are. Everything that we do is to educate you about history. I want to answer any questions. We've got about 5 minutes left. And this is a great opportunity for you guys to open up and ask any questions. Hey, Craig Woods, thanks for joining me. God bless you. God bless you. Hope you're feeling better. Robert Lee, thank you for joining me. Sean White, thank you and thank you. I appreciate it. I love the comments. I love the encouraging words. It keeps me motivated. But I don't know if you guys know, but I have a BA in history from Ohio University. And I never taught it except in college. I'm a professor at CCAD where I taught history. But at the same time, I never used it in the facets that I am using it now. And I'm so excited that God has opened this opportunity up. Do you have any questions? Hey, Carmen, thank you for joining in. Carmen sells Avon, you guys. Hit her up. If you guys, don't a lot of people sell Avon. So if you know of someone who's used Avon in the past and they may have lost their representative that they shop from, hit Carmen Colston up. She's my girlfriend, old school girlfriend. We raised our kids together. Hey, Leslie Travis, if you guys can do me a favor. Hey, Doc, Hey Doc, can you do me a favor and share this with your community? None of this is for me. This is honestly something that your children can do during this time off. We have another month until May 1st. You can get in the car. I've given you 3 addresses at least. They're literally 2 streets from one another. You can pick up McDonald's or Wendy's on Broad Street and head on over to 17th Street and notice 69 North 17th Street, and then go on over to Monroe and see the 2 other addresses. And then keep in mind that once we're through with all of this craziness, you can also visit the Kelp House, one of my favorite museums at 586 East Town Street. It actually is a freezing time of the 1850s. It's a time of the Victorian era, lots of decor. They talk about what they ate during that time. It's a good story. And keep in mind, they do have a sample of the Underground Railroad. So if nothing else, your children can learn all of that. Thank you for joining me, you guys. Thank you. Thank you again to the Bivens family. Thank you again to the Lawrence family, and for those that decided to join into our conversation today. I'm looking to see if you guys have any questions. It doesn't seem like you do. This is something I'm gonna do every Friday at 1 o'clock. So I expect to see you guys every Friday at 1 o'clock so that we can have a little bit of tea and talk some history. I'm your lifestyle expert and now your local historian. My name is Rita Fuller-Yates, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.